Oh, shit. That is exactly how stupid all of you look when you tell me, I just need to stretch my client's vision. You cannot stretch what does not exist. And actually the problem that a lot of health and fitness coaches are running into is the belief that their clients don't have compelling enough of a vision for change. And that's why they keep leaving early, when actually a lot of you don't know how to help your clients establish a vision in the first place. In today's video, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do when you're getting people who want to leave before the end of their commitment period because they don't have enough of a compelling vision to be able to stay. And I'm going to take you through the exact process that's going to stop you from hearing things like, I know what I need to do now, you've taught me so much, I can go ahead and achieve the rest of the journey on my own. If you're consistently signing up people for a 6-month commitment period who leave halfway through telling you that they have everything that they need and you're sick of it, then stay tuned. So the first thing that we need to establish with people when it comes to vision, right, is that for most people when they embark on a journey of change, they are operating from a pain motivator, okay? So when you sign a client up, quite a lot of them will say things to you like, I just don't want to feel this way anymore, I just can't cope with the thought of continuing like this, I've had enough, something needs to change, right? They come to you very much in that pain state. Even if you don't do emotional pain heavy focus marketing, most people will come to you telling you what they need to stop, right? Now, this is a huge issue that a lot of coaches come up against that causes problems further down the line that I don't think people anticipate. Because if you are signing someone up who's only telling you everything that they need to stop, then they're not actually telling you what they want to achieve. Now, remember, coaching is an outcome focused process. If somebody comes to you and says, I want to stop feeling this way, we have to understand, well, what is currently driving you feeling this way, but how do you want to feel instead, right? If they come to you saying, I can no longer cope with the way that I'm living day to day, well, how do you want to be living day to day instead, right? We don't just want to be focused on the stop, because the brain doesn't understand stop. You have to redirect the behaviour and help the person understand what they want to do instead, how they want to feel instead, so that you're defining a clear and focused outcome. This is something that a lot of people skip over, because what happens is that when the person is very much entrenched in the pain that they are feeling, they have that as the motivating factor, right? They're living in the reality of how they feel currently. So when they're living in the reality of that, they're very strongly connected to it. They're feeling it on a day-to-day basis. Whereas when someone gets through maybe the first 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks of the change process, that pain has started to ease off. They've started to see some change move in the right direction. They're feeling a bit better. It's really hard to connect to that emotional state, right? So if you have someone who is 3 months into a 6-month commitment period, who you recognise is making good progress but is nowhere near done, and they think that they don't need you anymore, that's why it's happening. There's not a clear defined outcome for them to work towards, and they're not connected enough on what I call the pull motivator. The pain from the push motivator has run out, and when the momentum from push runs out, we need a pull, right? We need a magnet that's going to pull the person forward through the rest of the journey. Now, that's where the vision piece comes in, and I'm going to talk you through that in a wee bit more detail. Now, the first thing that we have to understand here to be able to get people's heads around the concept of vision, and it's important, right? Because if you don't have client buy-in for this, it's going to be completely pointless. When you do this in a journey, is really, really important. I wouldn't recommend doing it at the very beginning. I would probably do this maybe 4 weeks in. Once the initial overwhelm has eased off, once the person feels like they've found their feet a bit, that's when I would do an exercise like this, okay? But I'm going to talk you through first and foremost the change and transition model before we move into more detail and vision, because this is really, really crucial, and this is why the timing of when you do this is really important. Because what happens is that when somebody starts to go through the process of change, right, they think that they're at a new beginning, okay? They think that they've found the solution, they've found all the answers, they know what they need to do now, it's so clear, they have no doubt in their mind, they're highly, highly inspired and ready to go ahead and make change. So they are full of excitement, hope, anticipation. They don't foresee any issues getting in the way, right? And the interesting thing about change and transition is that they happen in 2 different ways. Change is external and transition is internal. So the external change will take place at roughly twice the rate of internal transition, meaning that as someone goes through the process and creates physical change in the body, the mind is still behind in trying to catch up. This is why you'll have a lot of clients who lose significant amounts of weight, but say they still see the same person in the mirror. They don't really see the weight that they've lost. Other people are commenting on it, but they can't really see it yet. It's not that they can't see it physically, it's that psychologically they haven't transitioned from an identity perspective yet. So what happens for people when they're in that new beginning, or what they think is that new beginning honeymoon phase, they're actually going through a series of endings, right? They're focusing on the things, they're letting go of the things that have to come to an end in order for them to move into change. So they're going through that back and forward period of, I'm really full of hope and I'm really full of anticipation for what's to come, and I believe highly in my ability to achieve this thing, but there's these things from my old life that I'm also trying to hold on to as well. So for example, you'll see this quite a lot with people who are quite reliant on alcohol. They know that they want to lose weight and they know that they want to feel better, but they're still spending most of their weekends out partying. They want to hold on to a belief that both can be true and both can be possible, which for a short period of time it can, but as they get further and deeper into change, it's going to have to start to have a negative impact. That's when they start to go through that endings process, because they recognise there are parts of their old life that will not fit with the new life that they're trying to create. And this is when someone moves into transition, right? This is when someone moves into that in-between messy middle, right? And this is like a melting pot of emotion for the vast majority of people, because it can feel like a tug of war for both the coach and the client. That it's a highly emotional state. There's a lot of doing well, and then plateau. There's a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And this is the point in which vision is absolutely crucial for both coach and client as a magnetic pull forward when the person is in that messy middle of transition. So bear this in mind, because if you're seeing someone make consistent progress, but psychologically you can see that there's some things holding them back, or vice versa, they're trying to make that physical process connect with the internal transition that they're going through, but something's not quite adding up, it's because that magnetic pull is missing. But we have to be really, really aware of how the process of change actually works for someone psychologically, so that we can make vision relevant, and so that we can bring it in at the right time in that messy middle to give someone some direction. Now, a really crucial thing that I want you to take note of here is that you are not trying to help your clients establish a vision for their lives necessarily. You're trying to help them connect to how their health and fitness outcomes make the vision for their life possible, right? So I want you to think less about how do I help them to create an inspiring vision for life? How do I facilitate an inspiring vision for life via the health and fitness goals that we are going to set together? I'm going to talk you through a few of the questions that we have in our Vision and Values Finder. You can actually access this directly on the link below. You can use this resource with your clients if you want to take them through the process of establishing vision. But what I want you to be really aware of here is that as coaches, when we're supporting people towards the fulfillment of vision, we need to understand that vision is not something that you complete. Vision is not something that you achieve. A lot of people misunderstand vision as goals, right? And they think that fulfilling goals and achieving things is what vision is, and it's not. Vision is not, like, people talk about vision boards, right? Personally, I just don't really vibe with them, right? They're not my cup of tea. I'm just going to say it, simply because I think they're very often focused on material things. A lot of things to do with vision are very egocentric, and actually a lot of the things that people think are vision are just the needs of their ego, when actually vision is deeper than words on a canvas, right, and pictures you've cut out of a magazine. Vision is, who is the kind of person that I want to be, and what is the mark that I want to leave in this world? What is going to be my overarching direction for the rest of my life? For example, my vision for my life has always been and always will be to positively impact the lives of other people. As long as I am doing that, it doesn't matter how, right? That's the why that gives everything purpose. And I've fulfilled that purpose in many different ways throughout my career, but that doesn't matter, because the means to which I fulfill that vision are irrelevant. The vision is the thing that pulls me forward, right? So that's what we're trying to help people to establish. We're not just setting big goals, because that's not what vision is either, okay? We're helping people to understand when they're setting these goals, why is that important and why does that matter to me, okay? So I'm going to talk you through a few of the questions that we have in the vision builder. I'll put them up on screen so that you can see them as I'm talking through them, okay? So first question is, when you are at your absolute best, right, what's going on? What makes this happen? When are you at your best? What are you doing? Who are you with? How are you spending time, right? What is the material thing that you are doing that brings out the best in you? This helps the person connect identity to vision, because they base it entirely on who they are as a person and what makes them great, as opposed to looking at the gaps or the problems that they want to fill or solve. When a lot of people go on a self-development journey, they first look at problems, right? Remember I said that push motivator, it's the pain, it's the stop, it's the undo. That doesn't build a confident and capable person who believes in their ability to persist through difficulty. And if you really want to help people to stay through that messy middle, we have to help empower them to find the best bits of them that are unique to them. Right, so helping them to identify when am I at my best and what makes that possible, that helps you then to connect on a strong health and fitness goal that says, okay, well, here are all the things that you do that makes that possible. Let's connect the outcomes that you want to achieve to those things, right? One of the ones that I really like is imagine your 80th birthday party. I heard a really great thing years ago that was the only people that you need to make proud are your 8-year-old self and your 80-year-old self. Okay, so 8-year-old self, we're thinking more of a values basis. How did they live? What did they want for their life? How did they picture the future when they were a young person, right? And 80th birthday party is that reflecting back. As you look around the room, who's at the table? Who's there? What do they say about you? What's the impact that you've had in their life? What's the contribution that you've made to them, right? Think about that. What are the standout moments of your life that you share with them, okay? And then what are the outcomes that make that possible? Just a really obvious one for a health and fitness coach, like, how are we making it to your 80th birthday party, right? If you want to make it to your 80th birthday party, what are the health and fitness focused outcomes that are going to get you there, okay? I'm not going to talk you through all of them, but one of the ones that I really like and I think is a really important one is, what do you consider your most important contribution to the world to be? Remember, it's one of the 3 basic human needs contribution. People need to feel like they're making a positive difference in the world, or that they're contributing to something that is bigger than them in order to have a basic need met for human survival and human satisfaction. And a lot of people, I think, don't consider contribution, because a lot of people focus a lot on themselves and then think there's something missing or there's a lack of fulfillment, right? A really good frame for this for you as a coach is their contribution to your community. So thinking about the people that you have in your online community, face-to-face community, hybrid, whatever it may be, that's a really good way to anchor in contribution for people who maybe say don't have a family, or they don't have a job that they really feel like they make a strong contribution in. They don't really have access to other means to do it. That's a really, really good way to hook someone into the role that they play, not only for like with you and what they get from working with you, but actually the contribution that they make within your community to other people in their journey. That's a really good way to hook someone into that, but to help them to think bigger in the longer term about what is the thing that I want to leave behind, what's my legacy, what's my contribution to making the world a better place, right? And then how do my outcomes that I want to achieve working with my coach help me to facilitate that? How do I be the kind of person that is able to do that? Now, when you have a client who wants to leave because they feel like they can do on their own, they say things to you like, you've taught me so much, I've got everything that I need, I feel like I can go ahead and achieve the rest of the journey on my own. This makes a lot of coaches panic, because they immediately go, no, you can't, right? No way that they can do it without me. But actually, they probably can. If your coaching has been very transactional up to that point and the client only sees it as calories, a training plan and a check-in, then they're going to believe that they don't need those things in order to be able to move forward. So that's about making sure that your coaching is actually facilitating change that's necessary for people, so they don't see it as optional a few months in, and making sure that you're offering more than that. Because if that's all it is, then controversially, they're right. I honestly believe that you have to agree with them at that point if that is all all that you offer, because they probably could go ahead and do it on their own, okay? However, if you're hearing this consistently, you need to first look at what you're offering as a coach. Why would people want to stay? Ask yourself that question every single day, right? I call this the traitors question. Anybody who watches the traitors, you know, as it gets further to the end, and you always get those people that go, who's keeping me here? Who's keeping me here? Why am I still here? Right? They start making it all about themselves. This is my traitors question that you have to ask yourself as a coach every single day. Why are people staying in my program? What's keeping them here? Why are they staying? Why are they still choosing to show up? The people who you've retained for a long time, or you've worked with for a long period of time, why? What's keeping them there? If you can answer that question, then you know your biggest assets in retention. You deepen and nurture those, okay? However, if you're hearing this quite a lot from people who want to leave and you're not quite sure how to retain them, you can use my tool called the 2 Futures. Now, the 2 Futures is all about letting go of your defensiveness first and foremost as a coach, and I need to convince your client of anything. What we're doing here is we're laying out 2 realities, right, based on 1 decision. What will happen if they do stay? What will happen if they don't, right? What you're not doing is telling the client, and this is where a lot of coaches go wrong. They tell the client, well, if you go on your own, this is what will happen, this is what will happen, this is what will happen, and you're telling them exactly how they'll behave, how their future will be. People are not going to engage with that. Instead, you ask them what their plan is for each of these different things, okay? So if you stay on board, what will that look like? What will we do when you're struggling to adhere? What can we do differently to help you get back on track after a busy social weekend? What can we do differently to communicate more effectively so you feel you're getting more of what you need? What can we change or implement that right now you feel isn't available within the coaching dynamic that would help you to be more successful? If you feel like you can do this on your own, can you tell me why that is? Okay, get that information from them to understand why they can't connect what you're doing in coaching as the thing that is facilitating the outcome. Then you plug the gaps, okay? So let's look at the other future. If you do go on your own, what will you do when you're struggling to adhere? Leave the question. Don't fluff it. Don't add waffle. Don't ramble. Leave the question hanging in the air. Okay, what will you do when you struggle to get back on track after a busy social weekend? Leave the question in there. What will you do if your progress starts to stall? What will you do if your training plan no longer works for you and you feel like you need a change? Right? Now, the way that you do this has to be very, very tactful. This can't come across as defensive or see, I'm the only option. This has to be genuinely helping the client to think through those next steps, but leaving the decision ultimately with them, okay? So you're not in that moment going, see, all the answers are me, so you need me, right? You're helping them to think through the next steps that they have not considered. And instead of pushing them into, these are all the things that you won't be able to achieve without me, you're helping them to think through the reality that they haven't yet considered. Try and tailor this to the client. So look back at the specific challenges that they have experienced. So for example, you might get a client who you recognise every sort of 4 to 6 weeks has a plateau period, and it takes some time for you to work through the challenge of the plateau for them to then re-engage. So I would ask them, so based on your natural trend and pattern, you tend to have a plateau kind of every 4 to 6 weeks, and we spend about a week working together to get you back focused on your plan and make progress. When that happens again, when we're no longer working together, what's your plan that you have for that? So what plan do you have in place to help yourself get back on track and back focused on your goals, your outcomes, whatever they may be? You're not specifically, explicitly saying you can't do this without me. You're just helping them to think through the reality of what is to come and what they will do, because these are things that they have not yet considered yet. And that's what highlights your contribution as a coach. Don't tell them, ask them the question and help them to identify, that's how coaching has been facilitating all of these outcomes for me. In that moment, if they recognise, okay, I need to stay, that's then your opportunity to say, okay, tell me why you feel like you could have done it on your own and where the coaching needs to change for you to be able to recognise how this is supporting you to move forward, and we can add in anything additional that you feel like you don't have currently. Now, Last thing that I want you to remember that is really, really important as coach, whenever we are trying to have a vision focused conversation with a client or help them to stay focused on that magnetic pull, we are always asking them, why is this important and why does that matter? Not in an arbitrary, like, remember your why, right? I hate that. Remember that people's why evolves over time. The reasons that they're doing this changes over time, which is why it's important to have conversations about vision all of the time, not just at the start of the journey and then forget it exists, but helping the person to hook their decision making into that vision focused pull. Why is this important and why does that matter to you? Those two questions will help to anchor someone back in the moment when they're finding things difficult and help them to have that magnetic pull towards their goals so they stop giving up halfway through the journey. I really hope that this has been useful. Click the link in the description below for access to our free Vision and Values Finder. Feel free to use this with your clients when you're having these vision focused conversations, and I'll see you in the next video.